Hi, my name is Israel, and we're doing
A video for chapter 2.
a video for chapter 2.
Alright, we're back again, and what we're going to be doing right now is multiplying whole numbers in money and dividing whole numbers in money and some more fact families. Alright, so we have a problem up here. It says find the cost of 2 dozen pencils. Well, the first thing you need to know about this is, what is a dozen? A dozen is 12. So I have, if you can see it right there, 12 pencils. But this is 1 dozen. I need 2 dozens. So now, whoops, flip it around. We have 2 dozen pencils. 12, 2 times. So what's 2 times 12? 24. So you have to find the cost of 24 pencils. Alright. It's at a rate of 35 cents for each pencil. So make sure, side note, make sure you always bring your pencil to class. That's very important for your learning. So every time you buy one of those 24 pencils, you're going to be spending 35 cents. So that is 24 times 35 cents. Notice I put the decimal right here because 35 cents is basically how many pennies you're going to be spending for each one of those pencils. When you are multiplying, you do not have to line up the decimal points. Okay? You only have to line up decimal points when you're adding or subtracting. Let's go ahead and run through this. 5 times 4 is 20. So we're going to put the 0 down here, carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus the 2 that we carried. 10 plus 2 is going to be 12. The 2 goes there, and there's nothing to carry the 1, 2, so it goes right there. Cancel out what you carried and your number. It's important to cancel out what you carried. Once you cancel them out, put a placeholder 0 right there. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 goes right there, carry your 1. 3 times 2 is 6. Now we're going to add this 1 to our 6 right there. It's good that you cancel out that 2 so that you don't actually add that 2 instead. But 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7. Then we're done with that. If there's nothing else to multiply, then we're going to add. 0 plus 0 is 0. 2 plus 2 is 4. 7 plus 1 is 8.
98.
Okay, now look at your decimal right here. How many, from here, how many places did the decimal go over? Let me get a different color so you guys can see this. Maybe orange. Okay, so I'm moving this over 2 places. 1, 2. Okay, so since the decimal is 2 places from the right here, we're going to move it 2 places to the right here. Okay, so for those 24 pencils, you're going to be spending $8.40. That makes sense. But if you forgot to move the decimal over, would you be paying $840 for those 24 pencils? I would hope not. Either that or those pencils are somehow gold and really expensive. So kind of think about what your final answer is. And if you get something that doesn't make sense, maybe think about your decimal point placement. Israel, say decimal point placement.
Decimal point placement is good.
Alright, so we have a term here, commutative property of multiplication. That's kind of like the commutative property of addition. Remember, in addition, 2 plus 3 equals 3 plus 2. Well, this is the same thing, only it's multiplication. If you take 2 times 3, which equals 6, that's the same. You can switch these 2 factors around. So that's the same as 3 times 2, which equals 6. So we know that 2 times 3 equals 3 times 2 because both of these problems equal 6. Alright, our next term is identity property of multiplication. And what that means is that if you have a number, 5, and you want to multiply it by something and the product equals the same thing, in order to do that, you need a 1. So You get the identity by multiplying it by 1. So 5 times 1 is 5.
5 times 1.
Alright, next term. Zero property of multiplication. Alright, so Israel wants to get in the video here. He's helping me. Zero property of multiplication basically means that if you take a 5, or any number for that matter, and multiply by 0, you're going to get 0. And this right here could be anything. It could be 7. You still get 0. It could be
100.
100, and you would still get 0. The rule is anything times 0 is 0. Alright, example number 2. We're going to take 400 times 874. Whenever I have a problem like this and I have zeros on top, I like to switch the factors around, which we can because of commutative property of multiplication. So I'm going to take 874 and multiply that by 400. The reason I do that is because you can take these two zeros, whenever you have a number that ends in zeros, multiply that number second. Make sure everything's lined up, of course, as well. So the reason why I do that is because I can cancel out the 0, because I know 0 times 4 is 0, 0 times 7 is 0, 0 times 8 is 0. So everything is 0. So I'm just in this place right here, I'm going to put a big fat 0. I'm also going to cancel that number out, and that's going to be a 0. Now I can start my multiplication. 4 times 4, I'm going to take this 4 times that 4 in our little algorithm here. 4 times 4 is 16. 6 goes there, carry the 1. Now I'm going to do 4 times 7, which is 28, plus 1 is going to be 29. Now I'm going to do 4 times 8. Forgot to carry the 2. Don't forget to carry the 2. 29. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 2 is going to be 34. Now you have 3 numbers and a comma. Okay, so your answer is 349,600. Alright, a couple of things you need to know about division is the names of the numbers in relation to where they are in the problem. Okay, so dividend, that's the first number in a division problem. Divided by, the divisor is the number that divides the dividend, and your answer is a quotient. So whenever you see quotient, you're thinking division. When you set that up in long division form, it kind of looks like this. The number that's inside is a dividend. The number that's outside is a divisor. And then the answer, of course, is the quotient. With numbers, instead of names, it's going to look something like this. So your dividend would be, let's say, 244. Your divisor could be maybe 2, and your quotient would be your answer. Okay. Same with this up here. Your dividend would be the 244 divided by your divisor, which would be 2, and that would equal your quotient, or your answer. So let's go ahead and do this. 2 will go into 2. Alright, something else that we need to run over really quick is whenever you have a fraction bar, for example, 244 over 2, so 244 halves. The 244 is a dividend, and the 2 is a divisor. The way I like to remember this, when I'm, because a lot of times when you're reducing or turning something to a mixed number, something like that, you're going to have a fraction like this, and you're going to just use long division to reduce or turn it to a mixed number. So I'm going to change this to some type of long division fraction. So your quotient is going to be the answer of 244 and 2. How do we know which one of these numbers goes inside and which one of these numbers goes outside? The way I like to remember is in and out. In and out burger. So the top one is in, the bottom one is out. So that way we've converted a fraction into a long division problem, which many times is a lot easier to work with. And of course your answer is going to be your quotient. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the long division algorithm. There's 4 steps. Step 1, divide. Step 2, multiply. Step 3, subtract. Step 4, bring down. And step 5 is repeat those steps. So let's do that. 2 will go into 2, so I'm dividing now. Step 1, 2 will go into 2 one time. So I'm going to write my answer right above where I divided. So once I'm done with step 1, I go to step 2, which is multiply. 1 times 2, these two numbers. 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, done with step 2. Step 3 is subtract. So now I'm going to subtract those two numbers. 2 minus 2 is 0. And then step 4 is to bring down. And when you bring down, make sure you're coming straight down. I see a lot of kids, their long division ends up on like their desk or something. So 4 comes straight down. 2 will go into 4 how many times? 2. I put the 2 directly above what I just divided. Next step is 2 times 2 is 4. So I'm going to next step is subtract. So I'm going to subtract 4 minus 4 is 0. And the last step is bring down. Make sure you come straight down. 2 will go into 4 how many times? 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 2. Write the answer to your multiplication right below what you multiplied. And then your last step is subtract. And there is not a remainder. Okay, so in your book, example number 3 is 3,456 divided by 7. The dividend, the divisor, and we're going to find the quotient here in a second. So, 7, can 7 go into 3? No, 7 cannot go into 3 evenly. And so we're going to move to the next number in the dividend. Can 7 go into 34? And the answer is yes. We know 7 times 5 is 35, which is a little bit more than 34. So let's try 7 times 4. Okay, so we did our division. Now we're going to do our multiplication. 4 times 7 is 28. I'm going to write 28 directly below. Then I'm going to subtract, which is step number 3. You might have to borrow something. So that's going to be 6. So your remainder is 6, but we're not done. We're going to bring down the 5. Bring it directly down. So 7 will go into 65 how many times? Let's say 9 times. 9 times 7 is 63. Subtract. 65 minus 63 is 62. Now we're going to bring the 6 straight down. Now we're going to come back up and divide again. 7 will go into 26 about 3 times. 3 times 7 is 21. Subtract. 26 minus 21 is 5. There's nothing left to bring down, so our remainder for now is 5. So your answer is 493 with a remainder of 5. Alright, a little bit about fact families for multiplication and division. 5 times 12 is 60, and then there's a commutative property of multiplication, which means 12, let me get on this side, times 5 is also 60. So we know that 5 times 12 equals 12 times 5. I can switch around the factors. Alright, for division, it's a little bit different if I'm going to do a fact family. And I'll explain that difference in a second. So we know that 60 divided by 12 is 5. But this is the divisor, and this is the dividend. I cannot switch those around. I can't say 12 divided by 60 equals 5. This is not a true statement. So this little problem right here is not part of this fact family. What we're going to do to complete this fact family is I'm going to keep the dividend, and instead of using 12 as our divisor, I'm going to use 5 as our divisor this time. And then the answer will be 12. There's a bit on fact family.